Welcome on board, Mark Matthews, then, to talk about where exactly is this market headed. Mark, hi, good morning. Great to speak with you. Just analyzing what this move by China, the fact that they've actually removed the foreign investment hurdle could really spell for markets like India. Is it disadvantage India prima facie, Mark?
I don't think so, because most foreigners use the stock and bond connect programs that were established a few years ago to access China. They're a lot more flexible and they're a lot cheaper. So the QFII program was important prior to that, but it's a legacy now. It's not how people go in and out of China.
Okay. Mark, what's your assessment of the current situation globally? For now, equities seem to have moved past recent concerns. Do you see that as temporary yet again?
Well, the U.S. is just a whisper away from an all-time high, and so it's continuing to really lead the rest of the world. Their economy looks fine, in my opinion. The latest jobs numbers, you could poke holes in them if you want, but I think the important thing was the earnings. The average hourly wages of people are still rising, and the participation ratio is at a 10-year high. So the most important economy in the world is doing fine. And Europe is not. So I think that is the big thing to watch for tomorrow, the size and duration of quantitative easing that they're probably going to announce there. And then over here in Asia, the most important economy, obviously China, not great, but not bad either. Just in the middle. I was there myself 2 and 3 weeks ago. So I think on balance in this environment with still very low interest rates, decent economic growth, equity markets can go higher.
How does India stack up in the current picture vis-a-vis other Asian markets, particularly in light of the current global picture?
Unfortunately, it doesn't look good because of its cost. So as you know, it's always been an expensive market relative to its peers, and people have been always willing to pay the premium to own India because of its growth. And we can see in the economic numbers that have been coming out, of course, most recently, the quarterly GDP growth reading of 5%, that the growth is slowing down. And I think as much as India has many other attributes, the primary thing that will attract foreign money is growth. In the absence of growth, you won't get as much foreign money going to India because it is an expensive market.
That it is. But there is a part of the market which is relatively a lot cheaper as well, Mark. And that, I guess, is the broader end of the market. Your small and mid caps, which have been hard hit, and the underperformance has lasted for a while now. That's where valuations look attractive. And there are those individual pockets where, growth as well is visible and intact. Anything that you'd like to bet on from there?
Well, I'd still say with the small and mid caps that they are in the mid-teens. So it's not exactly cheap relative to the rest of Asia. It's cheap just relative to the Nifty. But absolutely, within the small and mid cap space, there are many good companies. We like the space generally. Absolutely, I would say, given its underperformance, it is a place to be buying things.
Talking about growth, there are contrasting views coming in on that. I mean, we've definitely slowed down. Things are really not picking up currently. Do you expect an earnings revival within, let's say, the next couple of quarters? How worried are you about the slowdown in India, given that we're still growing a little, quite a bit faster than the rest of the world, but perhaps not at the expected rate?
Well, I was just interested eavesdropping on your conversation before this slot, talking about how the millennials aren't buying as many vehicles anymore. That's very interesting. So there's a technological shift around the world. India is just as much part of it as anywhere else, which can explain some of the important changes in spending patterns. And so therefore, key economic numbers that people look at, like vehicle sales, perhaps there is an explanation for that. In other words, it's not that the economy is really that bad. It's just that millennials are taking Uber. But anyway, if you just look at the most recent reporting season, more companies missed than beat. So I do think that the earnings forecast will be revised down. And then I don't exactly know why the the overall economic growth picture is as lackluster as it is, but it does occur to me that the legacy of demonetization could still be with us, and basically the unofficial economy may have been much larger than any of us realized, and therefore the drag of that is still being felt in the numbers that we're seeing. Obviously, that unofficial economy was never tabulated in the official numbers, but it would have had a very strong trickle-down effect.
Okay, so if you did have to kind of invest right now, how much would you be ready to sort of dip your fingers into the Indian markets, as a percentage of your portfolio? I mean, would much change currently? Even not taking money off the books is a good sign. And where would you position it? Would it remain in the frontliners, specific names, perhaps financials? What would be the ideal mix?
Well, we have actually had a preference for the banks for some time, and so I think that the move to consolidate that sector is a tremendous positive. Of all the pieces of news relating to reform, that is to me the most important, because there are too many banks, and reducing them will make the financial system much more efficient. So banks, I think, is still a good hunting ground. And then to go back to what we already spoke about, the small and mid caps, I also think is a good hunting ground.
That's interesting. Mark, but do you not believe that there is a structural shift with regards to autos, and especially here in India, because of the transition to electric vehicles, and like we were just chatting about, a lot of people, instead of owning cars, going for those rental models like an Ola or an Uber?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it in the context of India until I was listening to you. But absolutely, I think that makes good sense. And it actually gives me a lot of comfort that the vehicle sales numbers are not indicative of something darker for the economy.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. In terms of going forward from here, we're still looking at